I think a man that's almost as dangerous, if not more dangerous than Trump, is Mitch McConnell. And he has to go. So we have to take back the Senate next year. Otherwise, this carnage will remain a permanent part of our history. And I refuse to accept that. And that's all I'm going to say. Welcome to episode 31 of the Left Crew Politics Podcast. I'm the host for this episode, Rick Shew. Jeremy Grokey was actually going to be with me today on this one, but he is at a Andrew Yang fundraising event in Los Angeles, and it overlapped with this, so he wasn't able to go. And Michael Malloy is traveling for business, so on this episode, it's just yours truly. I do have a fantastic guest. But before I get to our fantastic guest, I do want to... I want to address something that's very dear to my heart quickly here. So today in Santa Clarita, California, a 16-year-old kid walked into, and I hope I'm pronouncing this properly, it's Saugus High School. It looks like it's just north of Los Angeles. Shot at least 5 of his fellow students and killed 2 of them. So what we have here is yet another mass shooting in a school, at a public school in the United States of America. So... I know this disgusts and angers many of us. As a father of 2 young kids that are in public school, it really, really hits home. And I'm at a point where my anger is at a tipping point. I am, and I want to not be angry and do this Obama thing and, don't boo, vote, don't get angry, vote, get out and try to make change. And that's what we're going to do. But the NRA minions, known as the Senate and House Republicans, and they won't do a fucking thing about this. So I can just say that I am personally tired of the excuses. I'm over it. Mitch McConnell, you spineless weasel. Shame on you. And guys, it's so imperative. We talk about beating Trump in 2020, and it is obviously it is a matter of profound necessity that we do this. But we also have to keep in mind, we need to keep the House. And here's something very important that I think we don't talk about enough. I think a man that's almost as dangerous, if not more dangerous than Trump, is Mitch McConnell. And he has to go. So we have to take back the Senate next year. Otherwise, this carnage will remain a permanent part of our history. And I refuse to accept that. And that's all I'm going to say. So there's no really good segue out of this, so I'm going to just kind of bluntly shift gears. The good news is, like I said, we have a great show for you. So with us today is Mr. Matt Rogers. Matt is the Chief of Staff of Virginia Senator David Maston and Executive Vice President of Politidope Incorporated. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, and my thoughts are with the families out in Santa Clarita as well. Nothing's going to change until we change the seats. The Republican Party they're so beholden to their primary voter that even Republicans who you would candidly have conversations with and, I'm not that against, red flag, or I'm not that against background checks. They can't do it. They politically just cannot do it, or risk their seats. And so we have to make more of a general election calculation about that.
We absolutely do. We have to make the change. We have to get out and vote, and we have to realize what's at stake in this next election. Okay, we're talking about Supreme Court justices. Unfortunately and sadly, I think, and I hate to say this out loud, I think Trump is probably going to get one more before he leaves office, assuming he's only a one-term president. And,
let's not put that into the atmosphere.
I know I probably shouldn't, and I'm probably going to just regret saying that, but it's just a matter of, there's people that are they're at an age, and God bless them, but regardless, let's just say that's not the case. If he gets reelected, he most certainly will. And so we're talking about Supreme Court justices. We're talking about gun reform. We're talking about some dignity back to the White House. We're talking about everything. So Mitch McConnell's got to go. All right. So speaking of elections, all right, let's bring this to something very dear to your heart.
Yes.
Actually, before we do, you're very popular on Twitter. You're an activist. We admire you greatly because you're not just someone tweeting. You're out knocking on doors. You're out there making a difference, and it's inspiring. It's awesome. So do us a favor, if you don't mind. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself. Why are you right now sitting on a political podcast?
So I didn't realize until the second presidential election that I was able to participate in. I had always had political points of view, and if you got into a topic that I not even knowing the liberal point of view or whatever, I would always have something to say. But until 2012, I didn't connect the reality that my entire existence is political, and all of ours. I mean, our life's politics is just the art of relating with each other and creating coalitions to get laws passed. That's essentially what it all boils down to. And so my first gig was, I was getting a listserv, at BCU. They send large batches of emails of different openings for internships, and my girlfriend then, my wife now, was telling me, these little odd jobs you're doing to make money during college, that's cute now, but, I'm moving to New York. You need to find yourself a career. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't really want to do normal finance. And the Tim Kaine campaign was looking for finance interns. And so, I went in there my first day. I had no idea what to expect. I was kind of sweating, and I'm not really a nervous person, but it was kind of overwhelming, just to think about, because at the end of the day, as cynical as someone is, people do generally understand that these are people who create laws and have power. And when I got in there, it felt like I just felt at home, and it wasn't exactly because of the way that people were treating me there. It just felt like finally my hand was kind of on the switch, and you could see the agency and people calling and success. And so ever since, I've been just somewhat obsessed and just constantly moving forward, finding different ways to be involved, professionally, pro bono, or just yelling at the TV, as a lot of people do these days in the Trump presidency.
Yeah, right? It's funny because, like, literally I was yelling at the TV earlier today. That's fascinating, man. What do you think are your driving forces, Matt? Like, what are we can even put it in the terms of the next election. What's the top 2 or 3 things that are most important to you? Like, for instance, for me, gun reform is obviously one of them.
Certainly.
What about you? What's driving you?
Just the understanding, economic inequality is just, it's been at a bad place for a while now, and people that are in my generation, that is what we have come to expect. But, the generation of our, my parents when they were teenagers, or my grandparents, or before then, what they came up on was a real middle class that existed.
Right.
These days, people will think that they're middle class, but they're, especially living in Northern Virginia, your rent may be, $3,000 a month. You're living in a 2-bedroom apartment, and so, mm-hmm. You may think that you're middle class, but generally lower middle class, while a lot of people are really, really just, backing up the Brinks truck, having, their choice of whatever that they want. And I don't begrudge folks that, and you should be able to succeed. But at the same time, we need to have a floor, a realistic floor, a floor that is, is reciprocal with what we say our values are,
right.
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice. And people, anyway, so that's one. Economic, not exactly equality, just opportunity, the presence of opportunity for folks. And 2 is voting rights. Mm-hmm. People have died for the ability to vote. And, there are a lot of people who willingly or willfully don't use their vote. But there are also people at the same time doubling up on that deficiency in our democracy by thoughtfully putting barriers in the way of people getting out to vote. And it's just because it's out of pure political expediency, and it feeds into a certain cynicism that the other side hopes that everybody feels about politics and what's possible and how we should relate to one another. Mm-hmm. So those would be my top 2. I could go on and on about a million other things, But
so income inequality or income opportunity and voting rights. Those are in my top 5 for sure as well. So where do you stand right now on, and we'll get more into some specifics about 2020 and whatnot, but I want to, just curious, who's your top candidate of choice right now?
It's hard to say. It's more to me about, I could see myself still, honestly, and I'm not saying this just to be evasive or cagey. I could still see myself voting for probably 5 different people. But the message that I think is most important right now is, and I fear that a lot of people are being led down the path we were in 2016 is thinking, gaming out who I'm going to vote for based on who I think other people will vote for or want to vote for. And I'm just so afraid of that, us looking at general election polls instead of what we are actually going to do when we get the power. Hopefully, hold the House, take the Senate, even if it's by 1 vote or 2 votes, that's fine. And what will we do the next day? Thinking about the party we need to be, because there will be another set of midterms. We want to win this one. We want to hold the House, pick up more seats in the House, pick up the Senate, pick up the presidency. But 2 years after that, excuse me, what will we be able to tell folks that we accomplished, and who has an actual vision for that, as opposed to kind of just trying to, I think Biden, he does himself no favors by kind of trying to give off the feel that, and saying to people that nothing's going to fundamentally change. And I think that's the wrong message. My more concern, no matter who wins, I'll vote for a blue trash can. So put that to the side. When the general election comes, I'm voting for the Democrat. But
right,
I think
absolutely.
We have
especially in this election.
Oh my God. Yeah. But we have to be mindful that while we do have to not, accelerate our pace of change too fast where people can't keep up with us, and, we don't want to alienate, more moderate voters or, deliberately, but we do have to be aware that we have to have a compelling vision there are a lot of people who were either Bernie or bust in 2016, or went and voted for Harambe because they didn't think that the election was giving them a clear contrast. And my biggest fear is that we get the exact same number of votes as we got in 2016 with Hillary, and Trump gets a second term because we did not turn out or excite a new generation of voters.
Steve Kornacki broke it down even more in a more depressing sense than that we could actually get up to 4 to 5 million more votes and still actually lose the election. I know. I mean, that's where we're at, and that's where that's how this map looks. It's utterly depressing, and I love what you're saying, because we do get wrapped up often about removing Trump, because it's paramount that we do that. With that said, Trump is nothing more than, he's just a symptom of, we all created him.
Yes, we did.
Right? We did. We all created him in some way. And if fellow liberals are out there going, what the hell did I do to help create him? Well, I'm just saying that when the rise of the election of Barack Obama was in my view, the original catalyst for how we got Trump. And I don't necessarily mean Trump to Obama, meaning him trolling him with birtherism. I'm talking about electing our first black president with a Muslim name, no less, gave rise to the Tea Party. Yep. And by the way, anybody out there that tries to tell me or anybody else that the Tea Party wasn't, not to say there wasn't some good faith people, I'm sure there were, right? But overwhelmingly, that was a racist movement that were pissed off that there was a black Kenyan Muslim Manchurian candidate as president because, and I can prove it. Here's 2 ways I can prove it. One, when George Bush was spinning like a bat out of hell, they were nowhere. There wasn't a rally anywhere. Right now, look what's going on with the debt deficits. Look at what's going on with the government spending right now. Exactly. And those same people are just Trump little men, whatever they are. I don't know. It's
not the best people.
Not the best people. So my larger point here, not very fine people. We all kind of help created this environment, and we have to get rid of Trump. But then we got to figure out, how do we prevent him from ever happening again?
Yeah.
And what do we need to do to prevent that? And I think in a lot of ways that falls on all of us. But that can be a conversation in itself. So listen, let's get to something, and I appreciate you sharing and being candid. So I want to get something that's really close to your heart, and we can tie it into a larger discussion as well. But in your home state of Virginia, looks like Democrats picked up 20 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates. They picked up 20 seats in the Virginia House of Delegates since 2015.
Yes, or 2017. Yes,
or 2017. Yeah, thank you. But I'll say this. Let me read this New York Times article or headline that kind of, in my way, kind of summed up the results. It said, from deep red to solid blue, a new kind of suburbanization is sweeping through politics, from Richmond to Atlanta to Houston to Denver and elsewhere, and Democrats are starting to breach Republicans' firewalls in elections. That is great news, especially when we're just talking about how the Electoral College is set up, and we could still have 4 million more votes than Trump and still lose. But there's something going on the ground level, and I live in Dallas. And I'll tell you, man, the suburbs of Dallas and Austin and Houston and San Antonio, it's different. It's different than it was 5-10 years ago. And it's different. It's there's something brewing, and it's the suburbs. The backbone of our party are African Americans, particularly black women.
Yep.
And then I think it's just suburbia in general. Yeah. So what are your general thoughts on that? And also just feel free to take this platform to just explode with joy what happened in your home state.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I was a little more bullish on, a bit more bullish on what I thought could happen in the Senate. I got the House prediction on the nose, 55. And all of the Senate seats that we didn't flip, we missed by like 2% or, a few hundred votes. And so I feel pretty good. It was a great night. But, the theme that you're hitting on here about the suburbanization of the party, it all interconnects with what we were just speaking about a minute ago, and about, as opposed to, you cannot directly alienate your more suburban voters, people who may have voted for Republicans in the past or didn't vote, or, newly energized, newly liberal middle-aged white women. Generally your suburban voter, but at the same time you have to excite your urban voters, and so it's just really exciting. And whenever you get into these conversations, and I do quite often because I put up these maps on Twitter, just based on the president's approval rating.
And on that note, I love those tweets. You're talking about where he's at in swing states and everything.
Yes.
It's class A+ trolling, by the way. I love
it. And it spread so far. I'm sure he's seen them before.
And you're at 35,000, 40,000 Twitter followers, something like that. So that's help get that word out, brother. I love it.
Yeah. So when folks talk about the Electoral College map. And it's okay, because, it's my job to be the political analyst, the political operative, to know these things. Normal folks are thinking, with kind of fresh eyes, that 2020 is going to be fought on the exact same fields that 2016 was, while it may, and Democrats have to compete in the Ohios and the Wisconsins of the world, Pennsylvania, of course. At the same time, the deep unpopularity of Donald Trump and the changing minds of the people you're talking about in a place exactly like Dallas, Texas, provides the Democrats with new avenues to get to 270 or blow that out of the water that didn't exist in 2016.
Absolutely. And this state will be, I'm a born and raised Texan. I've lived in Southern California. But this is still home. And, I'll say that Texas is changing. I mean, and to give credit to Beto, and I will always give credit to Beto. And I met him recently. We actually had a really good conversation.
Nice.
And it was great. But that Texas, and because of him, he changed Texas politics forever. Yep. And the reason I say that is because he made it a reality that a liberal Democrat can win a statewide election in this state. And we've had Ann Richards and technically Jimmy Carter. A lot of people don't realize this. I'm sure you know this, but Jimmy Carter actually won this state, his first run for president against Gerald Ford. So there's certainly some blue blood going through my state, but Absolutely. It is changing.
Rick Perry used to be a Democrat. Sorry to cut you off. Rick Perry used to be a Democrat.
No. Yeah, so old school blue dog Democrat. Yeah, yes. But I mean, have you been here before? Have you been to Dallas or Austin, Houston?
I was in Houston. I was in Houston in 2012 for the Final Four when VCU Ram. And so when we went down for the Final Four, I was there. That was the only time I've visited. The roads are so huge there. But
they're here, yeah. But we got to get you to Dallas, and really need to get you down to Austin. I think you'd love Austin. But anyway, neither here or there. But it's changing, right? But what still concerns me is obviously what we talked about earlier in terms of the map and these states that could put Trump over the edge, even with 3 or 4 million votes. But what do you think Virginia and the other results from that election? What was it, last week, right? Are we 2 weeks out?
Yep.
Okay. What do you think the ramifications are for 2020? Do you think that represents something broader?
Yes.
Going into 2020?
Hugely. I think, and this is the battle that I deal with. While Trump's approval rating is not hard set in stone, and no, you cannot just look at Trump's approval rating in a given place and say that's exactly how the campaign's going to turn out. They are tethered to this man. Mm-hmm. And generally, where you go in a locality and people's feelings about Trump is exactly what their feelings are about the Republican Party. And there are some soft, support.
So are you suggesting they're one and the same? I don't mean to interrupt. I mean, I'm just curious. Yeah.
Okay. Generally, they are one and the same. His approval, will only move but 1 or 2 points down from what the Republican in a given area would get. So that being said, the outside looking in pundits from talking about the Virginia election, it's easy to point the finger and say, yeah, but Northern Virginia, and Trump's talking about he's trying to drain the swamp, and so Northern Virginia is urbanizing and suburbanizing, and so that's going to determine that Virginia is unwinnable. But Virginia is very much like the rest of the country, and when I first got into politics, which wasn't that long ago, it was a swing state. It was a state that on election night 2012, people were on the edge of their seats. Mm-hmm. And so the broader electorate, you have some urban, you have some suburban, you have some military areas, you have very rural areas. Virginia is really a microcosm politically and in terms of just, the only thing we don't have is one metropolis, but the outside of DC, the Northern Virginia area is essentially that. Fairfax County is a county, I believe, with 1.4 million people in it. And so it really, Virginia's elections, Republicans are doing themselves a disservice. Professional Republicans are doing themselves a disservice if they just discount the Virginia elections, saying that that's a state that they can just throw away. A lot of these other places Georgia's becoming a lot more like Virginia than Ohio.
Right. I think that it feels like there's certain states that I feel like things are obviously changing. 2016 taught us that. Pennsylvania flipping to Trump was personally that was the biggest surprise to me personally. I did not see that coming. I said on this very show, it was actually our pilot episode we launched in September of 2016, and I had stated on that show that I said, never undermine pissed off America, because something's brewing and Trumpism is real. And I don't want to call it a movement because that a movement's inspiring. He wasn't inspiring. He just was, he brought out a lot of like really pissed off people and just made them more pissed off. So I guess if you want to call that inspiring, be my guest. But going into this election next year, and it's really hard to put a finger on this, right? But you're not going to catch lightning in a bottle. We're not going to have Obama 2008. That was this political powerhouse that we haven't seen in generations, that swept and truly inspired millions of people to get off their couch and go vote. And it wasn't just because it was the first black candidate. A lot of other Afro-Americans had run for president previously, including people like Jesse Jackson, Al Sharpton. But there was something about Obama. But we can't have that. To me, I look at the Democratic Party, Matt, and I think I didn't realize how effed up we kind of were until actually Obama was out of office. Because once he was out of office, I realized how much we just sort of relied on him, and he was the savior. And you can look at midterms during his and what happened during his presidency. Yet he still persevered. He still prevailed. He was reelected despite what happened in his first midterm. But it was after he left, and I realized how broken I felt like our party was. And so, what happens now? Like, who inspires? Who gets people out to vote? Who gets people off their couch? Like you said earlier, who inspires the suburban white woman, but also touches and resonates with urban America? Because that was, quite frankly, that was kind of Hillary's problem. She got a lot of votes. 66 million votes. That's actually more votes than Obama got in 2012. The problem is she got them in the wrong places. So going into this next election, and I know I asked you this earlier, and I'm circling back a little bit. I'm not trying to corner you to say, no, Matt, tell us who's your favorite candidate. But I am just curious. Is there anybody that? Well, I'll tell you what. Let me do this. I'm going to walk down the list here, and you tell me, what do you think the odds are that this individual could beat Trump in the general election? Joe Biden.
How? So is this a 1 to 10 thing, or?
You know what? Okay, you know what? That's fair. More just your gut reaction. Like if you, okay, you know what? Let's do a 1 to 5. let's do a 1 to 5. So 5 being slam dunk, they've got it. 1 being we're dead in the water and he's reelected. Fair enough.
Okay.
Just
win, not be a successful president.
What's that?
Is this just win? Just winning. This is not like what I think about how they'd be as a president. Just to beat Trump. Okay.
Just that raw. Like, can we get rid of this guy, and then we can kind of sort out all of our differences with these various candidates and whatnot. But Joe Biden 1 to 5.
4.
Elizabeth Warren.
3.
Bernie Sanders.
5.
Ooh, really? Interesting. Okay. Mayor Pete.
4.
I'll do 1 more. Kamala Harris.
4.
I'll do 1 more. Deval Patrick.
2. Because
what's going on with that?
Is he going to get delegates? I don't know what's going on.
I don't know. I don't know what's going on. You know what I think he's done? I think he had some kind of deal worked out with Bloomberg, honestly.
Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah, I'll get in there. Bloomberg's going to have I think I heard this earlier on talk radio or somewhere. It was like, but by the end of next week, Bloomberg's going to set up a super PAC that he's going to personally fund for Deval Patrick. Kind of funny.
But just stopping there really quick, I really feel like people, and I was not a Bernie Sanders voter in 2016, so this is from the perspective of someone who discounted his electability, because that was really one of the reasons why I didn't vote for him in 16.
And by the way, I follow you on Twitter. We retweet you all the time. And I'm going to give you a lot of credit for this. I have yet to, at least on our handle, it's 3 of us talking and tweeting and everything. So it's a little obviously different perspectives. No one argues like the 3 of us argue internally, by the way. But I have never been able to pinpoint really who you would back as a candidate, and that's a huge compliment to you.
Thanks.
That you're yeah, man. I'm serious. That's hard. Like you're out there daily, constantly putting information out for people and making your stance and trying to get people out to vote and inspiring and this and getting into the commentary about day-to-day politics. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I have no idea who this guy's supporting. I have no clue. Yeah. I mean, I know that ultimately you're going to vote for the Democrat, but so that's great, right? But I didn't mean to interrupt. I just wanted to say that. So to go back to your Bernie Sanders thing. So you weren't supporting him. You didn't support him in 2016, but you're giving him a 5 now. You think that he's probably sounds like, if I just base it off this little exercise, that he's the one that's most likely that could win.
If I had to say who is the candidate who I feel is most likely to beat Donald Trump, just purely in terms of that, I think it would be Bernie Sanders. And to what you were saying earlier, Donald Trump's election was a mirror image of us as Democrats as well. Not just the Republicans and the racists and whatever the crossover is between those two who went and voted for Donald Trump. It's because the Democratic Party for years and years had not offered a compelling narrative, and Donald Trump exposed that this country really is populist at its heart. Now, he's offering fake populism, but there is a hunger out there for people to cut the bullshit, tell me what you want to do, even if I disagree with you. The Republicans don't like Trump, but they don't feel like he's bullshitting them, even though he is bullshitting them.
And that's just it, man. I go back, I think about his victory. You say, okay, so people want to roll the dice. They wanted the non-politician. They're tired of all the bullshit from politicians. But then you guys turn around and you elect the biggest bullshitter ever. Ever. You know what I mean? This guy lies more than any politician I've ever seen in my life. But he did tap into something, and I thank you, because I was just saying earlier about how we're all responsible for it. We're Democrats. You hit the nail on the head. The way that we're responsible for it, because we didn't have the fucking right message. And when we were post-Obama, or close to being post-Obama, when he was leaving, it really was apparent to me that the Democratic Party was there was a problem. And when you have people in Wisconsin and Pennsylvania that have been lifelong Democrats that voted for Obama twice, and they go vote for Donald Trump, there's something that is a problem, right? I'm not chasing the megas. I don't. They're to me, they're a lost cause, and I'll agree with Hillary that most of those people are deplorable, and they don't deserve a seat at the table. But not all the people that voted for the 62 million people or 63 million people that voted for Donald Trump. Obviously, not all those people are bad people. So because I'm related and friends with many of them. Yeah. Now, granted, most of them are not voting for him again. Whether or not they vote for the Democratic nominee or just sit it out remains to be seen. But at least there's that. But that populism that he was putting out there, it again, I think he capitalized on the fact that the Democratic Party was an upheaval, and he saw it and he knew it. He knew once Obama was out of office, and then you're left with establishment candidate like Hillary Clinton, who I admire greatly, worked as a delegate. I say this, I've said this on the show before, and back in 2008, right here in Dallas, Texas, I worked for her primary campaign. Like I'm an admirer of Mrs. Clinton. With that said, she was the wrong candidate for this quote unquote movement. And I'm just wondering how we get that back, because I feel good about Trump's stance and his low approval numbers. I love your tweets and everything, but at the end of the day, Matt, it's still not. Yep. To me, he should be at like 28% approval, man.
Absolutely. And I think that's exactly, what you're talking about is, how that boils down is, okay, for the partisan, the folks who vote every election, come hell or high water, they absentee vote, they regular vote. Those people are your steady hand voters. They're looking for, steady leadership, and you can convince those folks to vote. You can battle over those folks. But there are a lot of people who don't care about this stuff day to day. And you have to offer a message. How are you going to change my life? What is going to go and vote for you? What does that benefit me? Why am I going to interrupt my normal day? I usually don't do this kind of thing. I'm definitely not going to go and canvass for you. You could forget about that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go and vote. And how are you going to change my life?
Does it go back to that moment, to give Reagan credit? It was a powerful political moment. He's standing on stage with Jimmy Carter, who was mired in all sorts of issues, unfortunately, although very underrated president. And, God bless you, President Carter. I hope you're healing now. But when Reagan stood on stage next to Carter and he was like, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" I'm paraphrasing here. And he's standing there, and he's strong, and he's got this strong presence, and he says that, and unemployment's up, gas is whatever it was at the time, it was late 70s or early 80s. And I feel like it goes to that, right? Like, who's talking to those people? Are you better off? How do you feel? And that's the thing that when I look at all these candidates and I think about 2020, how do we break through to those individuals that might feel okay? Because psychologically, Trump's a great cheerleader. Think about how, consumer confidence is up. And I give Trump credit for that. And the reason I do, because he's out there touting this is the best economy ever and everything's great. And it's propaganda, it's lies. But he says it and he owns it. And people feel it and people vote by their feeling. And that talent that he has still scares the hell out of me. But we'll see,
yeah, I think the worst mistake we can make is, and this is not a shot at Joe Biden, who I do think would clean his clock. I think he would beat him handily, but we cannot, as a party, make our decision based on just beating or who the statistics. And I'm pretty into statistics, but yes. You cannot just choose this based on what the numbers are telling you. They have to have a movement behind them. Because if we don't excite people, Donald Trump I know that he's probably going to get about 95% of the votes that he got last time. And that's his floor. And
that's his floor, but he could get reelected with that. And I'm glad that you acknowledge that. People that say that he can't, I'm like, yes, don't underestimate voters and don't underestimate the power of propaganda. Okay, listen, I've got you. If I can keep you for about 10 more minutes, let's shift gears a little bit here and let's talk about the impeachment proceedings. For those listening right now, we're recording this on Thursday, November 14th, 2019. So we are really week one of the public hearings of the Donald J. Trump impeachment proceedings.
Giuliani has not been indicted yet. This is where we
Giuliani has not been. Yeah, and this show will hopefully will be on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, YouTube, where our shows go up. Hopefully tomorrow, which will be Friday. It might be up Saturday. If it's up Saturday morning, who the hell knows what's going to happen between here and then? Because but that's why I want to timestamp this so you guys know where we're at right now. So what do you think? How do you think things went this week and yesterday for the impeachment hearings?
Well, yesterday was really interesting, but I think tomorrow is going to be the bigger one. Because the whole what is appearing to be the defense for this shakedown effort is that maybe Trump was trying something crazy, but all it was just this phone call. There was no other overt efforts. Did he really do anything else? And her testimony about her being pushed out and possibly her life being in danger. This is a U.S. ambassador. This is someone who serves the country. And I think that's going to be explosive testimony.
I do as well. And this whole thing about firsthand or this is all hearsay, that also changes next week as well. So
absolutely. And like Peter Welch said, if you want to have a firsthand witness, the one that we would like to have most is the president himself.
Man, wasn't that a great moment? Dude, that was a great moment. I can't lie. That was I sometimes the theatrics of anything just it kills me because I love substance and I want but you got to have theatrics, especially on TV. That was pretty great. So what are your general predictions let me get your predictions on this impeachment? Direct question. Will he be impeached by the House? Do you think that Nancy Pelosi will get this done?
Absolutely. Without a doubt.
I agree. Do you think that will Mitch McConnell actually bring this to a trial?
Yes.
Will Mitch McConnell drag this out where people like Elizabeth Warren and Kamala Harris and others are not in Iowa campaigning because they are in the middle of this trial? You think that'll be a strategic move?
Do I think it will happen? Yes. Do I think it's a strategic move? No. The Democratic Party hates Donald Trump, so they could live stream from right outside the Senate chamber during the impeachment trial and bring in tons of money on Act Blue. So if Mitch McConnell wants to do that, go ahead and do it. Pull another partisan hackery move for the whole country because you're on the ballot too.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I'm going to ask you a couple of really pressing questions as we wrap up here, Matt.
Okay.
What is your favorite band or artist of all time, recording artist?
Man. Favorite, if I had to say. Lupe Fiasco.
Ooh. You know, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you or what's your age range?
I am 29, just turned 29 a few days ago.
Oh, happy birthday, man.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. But my sister is a true Gen Xer, so I came up on Red Hot Chili Peppers and Nirvana and
nice.
Yeah.
So I was in high school when Nirvana hit the scene, and at that time, as far as rock and roll goes, the biggest band in the world was Guns N' Roses and Motley Crue, stuff like that. Nirvana Smells Like Teen Spirit came out, and I remember listening to it in my car, and I just remember hearing it going, "This is a game changer! Like something. What is this?" You know. So yeah. I was kind of it's kind of cool to have been at that age. Of course, I just aged myself tremendously. I'm 44.
But those were good times, from what I see.
Those are great times, Dad. That's hilarious. But no, the 90s, I think, produced some of the best rock and roll of all time. One last question, and then we'll do some plugs, and we'll get the hell out of here. Who's inspired you the most politically? And by the way, it might not be a politician. It could be a friend or a relative. But who's your biggest inspiration, politically speaking?
Well, through the first half of my political career, because I feel like the last 2 years have been like 10 years for everyone. So let's break this down into two. For the first kind of half, and it was way more than half in terms of real time of my political career, was Barack Obama. Just his constant optimism, and well, it doesn't matter whether people can say it's going to happen. You have agency to make it happen. So that was, huge inspiration for me. Mm-hmm. But in the post-Trump world, it's all these women, young women, older women, middle-aged women, suburban women, black women, Hispanic women who stood up and said, hell no. I didn't used to think that this stuff mattered. I thought everything at the end of the day would be okay, but you guys elected a rapist, the president of the United States.
Yes.
And
a racist.
I've had enough. Yes.
I'm going to say that again. And a racist. And anybody that has Stephen Miller in their White House dictating immigration policy is a racist. Okay.
I mean, what other credentials does he bring?
Dude, it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. Let me ask you a question. Because Obama's one of my political inspirations as well. Even though, oddly enough, I didn't actually support him in the primary. I supported her.
Okay.
Mrs. Clinton. I came around on him, and I admire him immensely. Would you trade his second term for Mitt Romney to get elected if it meant we never got Trump?
No.
I wouldn't either. But someone posed that question to me, and I had to think about it for a second. I like how you didn't even hesitate. You're like, hell no. But cool.
Yeah, we really, unfortunately, and this is kind of very meta for me to say it like this, but I think...
Very what? Did you say very meta?
Meta.
Yeah, no, I love it. Just making sure I heard you right.
Yeah, because it's kind of, I don't know, detached from people's realistic, on the ground consequences of Trump being elected president. But as a country, I think we needed kind of a stress test of our democracy and a real realization that the Republican Party has been for years, but is just exposing themselves now, willing to justify and excuse any level of extremism or misuse of power to achieve partisan ends. And a lot of people, that hadn't been brought home viscerally until the election of Donald Trump. Not even just his campaign, but the fact that the Republican Party went and voted for this guy.
Right. And he still has, a 90% approval rating with the party. It makes me sad. I have a lot of Republican friends, obviously here in Texas especially, and so many of them, I even had a friend of mine, I won't say his name on the air, but he's a former Marine and just a dear guy. We've always argued politics, Matt, for 25 plus years. He texted me not too long ago, like a week or two ago. It was after we basically threw the courage under the bus. I think that was really the last straw for him in terms of, he just said, I will vote for Elizabeth effing Warren to get rid of this asshole.
Wow.
And for him to say that, because, she's obviously the one that's kind of put on this, she's the socialist, and that's where he's at. And I'm like, I can't wait to start disagreeing with you politically. All right, listen here, and I say this to you with all sincerity. We have never met, and before today, we never have talked. I've heard your voice on some videos that you've put up and stuff like that, but I've never really had talked to you. You are as impressive as your tweets are, and that's a big deal. And I think you're extraordinarily sharp, and you're extraordinarily impressive. And I thank you very much for being on the show, man.
Thank you, and thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to seeing how it does and what your folks think about. We left a lot of different topics with a lot of meat on the bone. So there's avenues for people to discuss different things that we brought up.
Absolutely. And we would love to have you back on, and we can hone in on a specific topic and just talk about that for an hour. So
that sounds good.
Yeah, please take us up on that. Okay, so give us a plug, man. Anything you want to plug at all? Where we can find you on Twitter, with anything.
Yeah. So you can find me on Twitter at Politidope, POLITIDOPE. You can also go to politidope.com. That has my organization that my wife is the president of, and I'm just the visionary leader who talks too much on Twitter. We are running a program called the Politidope Emerging Leaders Program for 14 to 17-year-olds to get involved in the political process even before they can vote. Because so many people learn that they can vote. Everyone knows that that's a possibility, but our system overall does not equip people with the understanding of why it matters to vote or what you can do other than vote to affect change in your community or nationwide.
So what you're also saying is that get involved on a local level as well. Fair to say?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Please.
Who your city councilman, woman are, your mayor, all that stuff matters so much. God, it's awesome. Thank you so much, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Did you throw out your Twitter handle?
Yes, I did. Politidope, POLITIDOPE. Politidope.com.
Just making sure. If you're on Twitter and you're not following Matt on Twitter, you need to follow Matt on Twitter. Okay. Just saying. That's all I'm going to leave it at that. All right, guys. In closing, thank you guys for listening so much. Remember to always hit us up on Twitter at Left Crew Politic. I cannot put politics. They cut me off on character limitations. Damn you, Twitter. Facebook. We're kind of blowing up over on Facebook, so thank you guys for your support over there. Let's keep it going. YouTube and wherever great podcasts are found, including this one. I am Rick Shew, and on behalf of myself, my partners in crime, Michael and Jeremy, we again thank you for your support. And our good friend and podcast regular, Rachel Ramey, is going to take us out.
Thanks for listening to this episode of our Left Crew Politics podcast. You can find us on Twitter at Left Crew Politic. Follow the Facebook page at facebook.com/leftcrewpolitics and the LCP website, leftcrewpolitics.com. Search for our channel on YouTube, iTunes, and Google Play.